This is Gemara Zevachim, Daf Chaf Beis, the Daf for Erev Sukkos. Again, we're going to be trying to get all the Dafim up a little bit in advance of Yontif for all those that would like to prepare in advance. We're holding on, Chaval from the Beis, we're 4 lines in the bottom, Gufa. All the learning once again has been dedicated as an incredible Schos Refuah Shalema for Gavriel Simcha ben Miriam Ahuva, the incredible Kayach HaTaira, which of course has the most infinite powers, should bring Gavriel Simcha ben Miriam Ahuva a Refuah Shalema b'siyata dishmaya. We're holding on again, Chaval from the Beis, and we're at the 2 dots. Says the Gemara Gufa. We're in the middle of discussion of the Kiyar Amr of Yisrael Chlina Kol Kiyar. She'ein ba Kadesh Arba Kayhanim Imenu Ein Mekadshim Bay. If the Kiyar is not large enough that 4 Kayhanim can be Mekadesh Yadayim Raglayim from it, says the Rav Yisrael Chlina, it cannot be used. Where we know this from, Shenamar, says the Pasuk, Barachatu Mimenu, you should wash from it. Moshe v'Aaron ubanov. Moshe is 1, Aaron is 2. Ubanov, there are 2 of Aaron's children right now, equaling 4. Says the Gemara, or I should say re-says, quoting from the previous sugya, that, this goes back to Daf Yotes, that the kiyar needs to be able to hold the amount to be Mekadesh Yadayim Raglayim of 4 Kayhanim. Meisvei asked the Gemara in the last line, Kol HaKelim Mekadshim Bain, Sheyesh Bahen Revi'es, Bain Shein Bahen Revi'es, Ubelvad, provided that she Kli Shares, they have to be Kli Shares. So ask the Gemara, I don't understand. We have a Braisa, and the Braisa says you can be Mekadesh Yadayim Raglayim from any Kiyah, any Kli, that could hold a Revi'es or not. So Amar Avad Baracha, 2 lines down, Chafezim and Aleph, says Avad Baracha bekoideach b'soichoi. You make a hole through the side of the kiyar, and you put this vessel into that hole. Look at Rashi for a moment. Rashi explains, Kodeach b'teicha, Kodeach means you make a hole. Kodeach deifnei shal kiyar, the wall of the kiyar, v'teicha kli katan. And he put inside of it a small kli, umeksasai lechos, and part of it is sticking out. V'yoinek mimei kiyar, but again the waters are coming from the kiyar. Moitzi aval ba'ape navshei b'ninshi arba kehanim. So Rashi, the Gemara of Avad is explaining that if you're being mekadesh yadayim v'raglayim from this kli, then it needs a amount to hold to wash 4 kehanim's yadayim v'raglayim. But if you're utilizing it to put into the kiyar as a spigot of sorts, then it does not. Ask the Gemara 1 second. V'mimenu amarachmana. But the Torah says mimenu has to be for the kiyar itself. Explains the Gemara, Yerchatzu, the word Yerchatzu, the rabbis, Kli Shares, that there could be additional kalim to aid in the washing process. V'rachasu mimenu, v'samachet b'vayim elakay, and Rashi says that it's teaching us this extra riboy. Ihachi, says the Gemara, Kli Chol Nami. If this is true, then why do you need Kli Shares? Anything. Amar Abaye Kli Chol Lamatzi Amrit, Mikal V'chaymer. What's the Kal V'chaymer? Mi Kanoi, from the base of the kiyar. Omar Kanoi, Shenimshach Imai, the base of the kiyar. Shenimshach Imai, which was anointed together with the kiyar. Yet, Einoi Mekadesh Kli Chol, it did not work. Eino Mekadesh cannot be used to sanctify your hands. The kanoi is a base for the kiyar, and the kanoi can't be used. We'll see what this means in a moment. Kli chol she'einoi nimshach imai did not receive the same level of the anointing oils with the kiyar. Einoi din she'ein mekadesh, says the Gemara v'kana minolan. Where do we know this thing that we just said, that the kanoi, the base, cannot be used for the atzem kiddush yadayim v'raglayim? Titania, 8 lines down. The first one line is Titania. We learned in a Braisa. Reb Yehuda Mer Yachli Kanoi Mikadesh Kederech Shaikinar Mikadesh. I would have thought the base could do the same thing. Tamalei Merva Sisakir Nechoshes the Kana Nechoshes. And from here we learn how Nechoshes he kashtiv, the 2 are equated for the fact that they're being of Nechoshes. Veloy Lidavar Acher, but not with regard to anything else. So says the Gemara, what do we see? We see that the kanoi, the base, is not utilized in the etzem hakdasha and the etzem sanctification, and therefore we can learn out so too that it has to be kli shares, other kalim they're utilizing as spigots inside the kir. Armle marzucha breder amari the ravina maila kanoi shein asoi litoichai. Asks Marzucha 1 second, the base, which is not made for the inside of it to be used. It's not also l'teichai for the inside. It's a base. Timer b'klichal shalsa l'teichai. Ella says mar new drashim imenu lemute klichal. Yachi klisharis nami. Harabachmani yerchatzu. Or my ra, it's the classical kasha. We have one riboy, we have one miyat. How do we know which is which? Says Gemara zeton meshicha kamayu, v'zein time meshicha kamayu, and therefore we're coming out that if to answer up the original stira, whether it has to hold the revius or not, is totally whether you're utilizing the keli itself or whether it's utilized as an auxiliary to the kiyar, and it has to be made of kli sharis. Amar Reish Lakish, the two dots 15 lines down, teaches Reish Lakish, Kol ha-mashlim l'mei mikvah, mashlim l'mei kiyar. Any item, substance, liquid, as we'll see, which is mashlim, which could complete the waters of a mikvah. Mashlim can complete lemei kiyar, l'revius, but it cannot complete enoi mashlim. For a revius of water, it cannot complete. When we're talking about a revius for regular natilas yadayim, then the same liquids cannot complete. We'll see what this means. Lemute mai. Ilim lemute tet. Hanadok. And this week take a deep dive into Hilchos Mikvayis. If it comes to exclude liquid mud, meaning that maybe it's telling me that liquid mud is yes mashlema mikvah. It yes makes the mikvah the requisite 40 sa, but it's not going to be mashlim. It will not complete the revius until tzidayim. Ask the Gemara, Chidami, what's the case? If it's mamish pourable, that a cow could drink from it, then the halacha is avil revius nami. It should yes work for the Natilas Yadayim. Vein parashech v'sheis mimenu, then avil mikvah nami ein mashlim. So what is the case that the Brisa we just said is coming to exclude? Alemuute yavchushin adumin, red midges. So little bugs, says Rashi, that come inside the water. Then maybe Reish Lakish is telling us that this could be utilized, that we don't have to be cognizant, we don't have to worry about these bugs when we're measuring the mikvah water, but we have to worry about them for the Natilas Yadayim. Says the Gemara, Vafilu beinayu nami. What do you mean? You could go into them themselves. What does that mean? Says the Gemara, Datani Rashba Goimer, teaches of Shimon and Gamliel. A fascinating idea. Any organism, any bug, that its original creation is in water, you could actually be toivel in the bug. You can be toivel, whatever that means, in the eye of the fish. Rashi says, some sort of a creature. You have a huge fish, the eye dissolves in its socket, you can dive into the eye, whatever that means. But proves the Gemara, so certainly the Avchushin Adumin wouldn't be a Chiddush. So Amar Papa teaches our Papa, what are we talking about? Lemute nasan sa v'natal sa. Reish Lakish means you put a sa, non-water liquid into a mikvah, and then you remove a sa. So halacha is going to be for a mikvah, it's going to work, but not for a revius of Natilas Yadayim. Ditenan. We're 15 lines to the bottom. The first one in line is Ditenan. Learn to the Mishnah on mikvahs. Mikvah yeshoy memsa mechuvanois. Precisely memsa. Exactly. Nasa and sa, you put in a sa of other liquids, not of water. But not al sa arizeh kasher. V'amrav Yehuda bar Shila, amrav Asi, amrav Yechanan, ad rubai. You could keep on doing this as Rashi articulates ad rubai. Im irev boy mi minim aladu an rubai shall mikvah v'lei rubai b'chlal. You didn't see this until a sa kash. You keep on pouring in these other liquids and taking out a sa, it's going to be kash. Amar Rav Papa teaches Rav Papa. Im kadach by revius. If you make a hole into the water of a mikvah, in the wall of a mikvah, and the hole is large enough that it can hold a revius, and the revius of the mikvah water goes into the hole. Matbilin boy, you could even go into the hole. What? Machatin vitzinairis. That the hole, if it could hold a revius, it takes on the status of the mikvah, and in that hole in the wall of the mikvah, you could drop in teeny little kelim for tvila. Hayil machshirei de mikvah ka'asiyak. They're coming from the hechsha of the mikvah, fascinating entity of hilchas mikvah yos. So, after taking a little bit of a segue, a little bit of a fascinating, excerpt, we'll call it, from hilchas mikvah yos, continues the Gemara. The waters of the mikvah are kosher for the waters of the kir. Says the Gemara, 6 lines in the bottom. Are you telling me that the mikvah does not have to be fresh, living water? Vatanya, it says in the Braisa in Vayikra, Bamayim v'lo bayayin. Torah said it has to be water and not wine. Bemayim v'lo b'mazog. Water and not a mixture of wine and water. Bemayim l'rabbi shar mayim. Kavachaymer l'mei mikvah. Kavachaymer, you could use mei mikvah. This is a brisa talking about the waters that are going to be used for washing. Says the Gemara, Kavachaymer, that you could use the mei mikiyar. Says my kavachaymer l'mei kiyar. Lav de mayim chayim ninu. Is it not teaching me that it's mayim chayim? That's teaching us, the Bryce is talking about washing different parts of the karbanos, that if you could use regular spring water, you could use kiyar water. But says the Gemara that shows us that the kiyar water seemingly is also mayim chayim. As Rashi, again, let's just read the Rashi inside. Rashi towards the bottom of the Amid. 6 lines to the bottom. My kavachamer the meikiyar, the memer the mayim chaynin of achikamer kavachamer the mayim chayim. Horuyin leikiyar, that what? Shekesherin lirechitzas karvei kadshim. Seemingly it's going to be the same thing. So the Gemara wants to prove that what? We see the kiyar has to be mayim chayim. And says the Gemara, lie. You know what it means? De kaddish. What the Brisa means is that we're talking that the key has to have, similar to the kiyar's water, that it is kaddish, that it is sanctified. And says the Gemara, but the water that is kaddish, does that help? We're talking about, again, rechitzas kirvei kadshim. You're washing off the parts of the carbon, the animal body parts. Says the Gemara, the fact that the water is kaddish, the water is sanctified, helps you. Vatana. But we learned in Abraisa, Rabbi Yishmuel, Mayim she'ein lahem she'ein levaya. When the Torah says water, it means water that doesn't have another name to it. Yatsu, Me'aki, or turn off the Chaf Beis Mebeis. So says the Gemara, you know what this memra of Rabbi Yishmael teaches us? That when you want to know what waters could be used to wash off their carbonais, has to be stam water. And it cannot be water that has another name, so Meir Ki will not work. Shem Shem Levai has another name. Elalav Durian Lemekiyar. Rather, says the Gemara, what does it mean that's rare Lemekiyar? Elamayim Chayim Nenu. So we're back to our original kasha that the Gemara is proving to us, seemingly that the kiyar waters have to be fresh spring water. Answers the Gemara, you're right. But Tanayit Machlekes Tanayim, the Yochanan Mekiyar Ishmael Meimayanhu Chamarim Shar Meimayisein. So Machlekes, what were the kiyar waters? Were they mayan? Were they spring waters? Or would regular water suffice? Says the Gemara, Orel. So we just took a little bit of a segue into the halachas of the kiyar, which took us into the halachas of mikvah. Now we go back to the dinim of the Mishnah that the parak began with, which were all the different people who were apostle for karbanis. And one of them was the Orel, one who doesn't have a bris milah, minolan. Amrav Chisda, Davar Zemidar Sesh Rabbeinu Lo Lamdu, Amidivri Yecheskel Ben Buzi Lamanu. We learn this out from the Navi Yecheskel, Kol Ben Echel Aral Lev Aral Basar. Lo Yavo El Mikdashi L'Sharseni. Ominala and Demechali Avoida. So we see they can't come in, but how do we know that it's Mechal the Avoida that apostles? The Chsev Aviachim Esvedei Nechar arle lev arle basar lias b'mikdashi lechalel as basi. There's another passage that clearly says the chalel as basi. So we see not only is it not allowed, but it even passes b'diavad. Tana Rabbanan at the 2 dots. 10 lines down, we dive a little bit deeper into this drasha. Says the Gemara, Yachal, I would think, Ben Nechar Mamish. I would think the pasuk is talking about Ben Nechar, a guy. Tamalaymer are a levim came out. Tamalaymer Ben Nechar shenischaru ma'isav la'aviv shebashemayim. That his actions are nischaru. His actions are disgusting, turbid to his Father in heaven. Ve'ein li al aralev. Aral basar minayin. How do we know one who doesn't have a bris? Tamalaymer of aral basar. Utzrichi. So it says we need both psukim. Because Rachman aral basar misham demas. It's disgusting. Aval aralev to lamai same alive. Yeah, should aralev. I would have thought misham dein libel b'shemayim. Aval aral basar doesn't have a bris milah, but he might have his thoughts to Hashem. Libel b'shemayim emalai. Tzricha. Therefore, we need both parts of the pasuk. We continue to Makimin the Amid, the next psul in the Mishnah, which was what? A tamei. Tamei basal. Amru zignei darim laishanu ala tamei sheretz. The elders of the darim of the south said, this is only talking about one who is tamei from Tumah sheretz. Aval tamei meis mitach shemiratze b'sibar miratzenami b'yachid. Someone who is tamei meis, since he could work, since he could bring a carbon sibur, he could bring. If he brought a carbon yachid, it will not possible. Says the Gemara, Yachi, if this is true, Tamei Sheretz Nami, Lacy B'Kavachimer. Says the Gemara, let's bring a Kavachimer, Mitamei Meis. Ma Tamei Meisha Toyina Zaya Shlishi. She says the Gemara, the classical kasha. But Tamei Meis is more chamer. What does the Tamei Meis need? He needs sprinkling on day 3 and day 7. And yet what? It's Meratzef. He does the avoid that works. Tamei Sheretz. Says the Gemara, Kasavri Ziknei Darain Mechaprim Kim Mischaprin. You know what they held? They held that the one doing the Avaida, the Kohanim, are similar to the ones who need the Kapara. That what? Ma Mischaprin to me mace, Ein Tamei, Ma Mischaprin to me mace in. Just like the one that's getting a Kapara. To me mace, if someone is Tamei mace, then you could bring the carbon for him, but yet to Meisharetz Lai, Af Mechabrin to Meis in to Meisharetz Lai. So says the Gemara. You're right that maybe your Kavachimer ostensibly would show that in the world of what's Chomer and what's Kal, it would seem that if a Tamei Meis could bring a carbon, certainly a Tamei Sharetz. But says the Gemara, you know what the Ziknei Daraim, a term being utilized that we have Rashi way back in Eruvin that teaches us these were incredible zakenim. So says the Gemara, the Ziknei Darim held that no, the person bringing the carbon is going to have the same status as the person that needs the carbon. And the halacha is, the person that needs a carbon brought, if he is Tamei Meis, you could bring a carbon for him. But if he is the Tamei Sheretz, then you cannot. Says the Gemara, why is this? Micah Savri. If the Ziknei Darim held ain't Sheikhlan v'Zarkan al Tamei Sharetz, you can't bring a carbon for Tamei Sharetz. Amai loi. Why not? Avdi Tzibur B'Tuma. Says I don't understand. Amai loi Avdi Tzibur B'Tuma. Why could they not bring it B'Tuma when it comes to the carbon Pesach? Hakol Shabiyachad Nitzcha. Tzibur Avdi B'Tuma. So we have a problem because the call is that any time if a singular person couldn't bring a carbon, then if God's Klal Yisrael has that Tumah, the halacha is, it pushes away the Tumah and he can bring the carbon b'Tumah. So based on what we just said, if a Yachid cannot have a carbon brought when he is Tamei Sheretz, so if the Tzibur would be Tamei Sheretz, they should be Daiche the Tumah, and they should, yes, be able to be bringing the carbon Pesach. But we know that's not true. So Elikasavri Sheikhtav is arkin out to Meishar. It must be that you can, yes, bring a carbon for the Tamei Sheretz, which now brings us back to a problem. So says the Gemara. So the Gemara is concluding that yes, your Sheikhtav is arkin out to Tamei Sheretz, but yet the Ziknei Daraim or have this interesting opinion that the mechaprim will be kim mischaprim, and therefore it will work to Meis and not to Sheretz. Now, whether this math works or not is really the subject of the next Gemara, which is really going to be Ula's Kasha, that Tokale Rish Lakish L'Teraymai, Chezik Kayach Maruba Kayach L'Samer Kayach Mischabrim, and he doesn't like the whole equation. So even though right now it would seem that the math is a little bit flawed, we're going to pause over here, because what exactly is the shita, we'll call it, of the Ziknei Darim is not symbol. Stop over here, I'll pick it up from here, B'siyata Dishmaya.